Alrighty, it is 7 o'clock again. I took an hour break. So, let us start this up again. And, hold on, I gotta figure out this Twitch thing again. It's always gotta be an issue. It's not showing the window that I want. Well, that's good. That's lovely. That is awesome. Of course. Oh, aha! There we go. Yes. Okay. So where did I leave off? Well, I'm just gonna check if it's working on mine there. I'm back. I'm here. Everything's working now. Oh, jeez, gotta move that. Okay. Let's put that aside, minimize that, do this. Is there a way I can just like pop out the chat thing so I can just see that? Like, there is! Haha! Awesome! Okay, cool. I can just do that. Not just full screen that still. Let's, what did I do? Okay. There we go. Okay. So, where was I at? Witcher Rage Rebellion did that. Caliborn's art matched up with the new timelines. Did that. Okay, so next one. Do I have any idea on how to allow to promote the inversion of a thief of breath into a page of blood, or stopping or deterring a page of blood from inverting to a thief of breath? So like just stopping or making an inversion happen or stopping an inversion happen. Again, with the idea of an inversion being like this rejection of yourself and seeing yourself as useless and your talents as useless and not finding any worth of them in the world. In order to encourage that, you would have to put that person in an environment that kind of confirms that belief. So, or like just put them in a lot of situations where they feel useless, where they feel they're unable to do anything, where they're helpless, where they feel their talents can do no good, and that they're just stuck in awful situations that they can't do anything. That's a surefire way to get someone to invert. So just make them feel absolutely hopeless, like, and they can't escape this hopeless situation either. So making like their session feel really super hopeless and awful, and like because they're trapped in their session, like boom, inversion, like probably most likely. Or to stop or deter someone from inverting is to try to convince them that what they can do and that their own natural talents and who they are useful. They're worthful. They're full of worth. Like they're not worthless. Like you have gifts, you have talents, and you as your own self and person are important and valued and needed. And like only you can do this thing. Like give them something where like only they can do it. Like doing their land quest, for instance. Like that's something personally tailored to them that only they can do, and is a really important overall to everything, and it's just something only they can do. That would maybe stop it, but would help deter it, because whether or not someone inverts is really up to the person in question, because you can't really make someone have self-esteem or like you know what I mean? Like it's probably easier to invert people than to stop them from inverting, because it's pretty easy to like lower someone's self-esteem, because it happens all the time with like bullying and stuff, and like what Vriska does to the rest of the meteor group is like a great example of like making everyone feel like shitty in their roles and stuff. Like, but it's probably harder to like boost someone up, but it can be done. It can be done. So yeah. Next one. It seems that light and hope cover different aspects of similar things such as science, spirituality, and religion. Glad your eye is okay now. I hope that sort of thing doesn't happen again. Yeah, that was from when I made a wand, like a wand carving, and it got a wood shaving in my eye, and it scratched my cornea. That fucking sucked. That hurt as fuck. Anyway, again, different aspects doing different things, like I did in the first time I streamed this in the video. Every aspect can share something with another aspect, and something that light and hope cover is spirituality. So hope has to do, again, with like these sort of like spiritual ideals of like faith, belief, hope, sort of ignoring like limits and ragey things, and like the idea that you can't do something and going, no, you know what, I can. It's like a blind faith, which ties into more like a religious side of things. Light also has to do with like more of a spiritual rather than religious kind of thing, because it's very it deals with a lot of symbolism, and the idea of light as enlightenment also works as well. So yeah, they both have sort of like spiritual and religious sides. And then there's also a scientific side to it, because well, hope also has to do with like blind faith and belief. It also has to do with authenticity, with realness, with what is like actually around you. So that can deal with like a very scientific method kind of thing, as well as light dealing with data and information and concrete definitions and definite truth. Like a truth is a big thing that light and hope both sort of cover either with truthful information or truthful reality. So yeah, there's a bit of an overlap between like a science, spirituality, and religion with both of those aspects. The next one, Jack Nauer fulfilled his title by making a contract with Caliborn to kill Caliph. Being sent on his quest and negotiating canning is also breathy. A Prince of Blood can be a killer who has a contract with is deadly loyal to someone, right? Yeah, that's kind of true. Jack Nauer is pretty like a Prince of Bloody type character. They definitely like someone who destroys with blood can definitely be someone who destroys under contract or under oath, like sort of a mercenary type. Or they can just be like really extremely loyal or committed to a thing or an idea, and they kill for that purpose. Yep, I can see that. Okay, this next one. The plan is free Jane from Cybercrown mind control, kill Jade, Grimbark disappear because she's dead, make Jane resurrect Jade, ? Profit. I don't know. That's maybe a plot thing. I don't know what'll happen. I'll just go to the next one. Hey, so a few weeks ago, I did a test to figure out what my god tier is, and don't ask, I get really bored sometimes. I recently repeated it and got a different answer. Do you think it's possible for someone to switch between god tiers? My first result was a Witch of Mind, and my second was a Mage of Light, just in case it matters. No, because those personality tests, like I've said before, they always base it on who you are currently, and you always answer as who you are currently, and that's not where your god tier is. Your god tier is like this set idea of like what you want to do in your life, like who the kind of person you want to be, like when you reach your full potential. Like if you have this idea of a thing or like something you want to do, like if you died tomorrow, like you just want to do this one thing, just that. If you had only one thing to do that you wanted to do, like that would be representative of your god tier, of this like major impact that you want to have on life and reality that's there even after you're dead. It's how you are immortal, kind of thing. Like, you know, it's being all poetic and stuff about it. Yes, your vision of your ideal self can change with time. That's why you shouldn't base it off your current self. Because like your current self is always in that sort of state of flux. You will get a lot of different personality test answers, and you will switch between god tiers, because like you haven't really fully reached your potential yet. You only god tier, and you only get your class spec when you actually reach like your full potential, like, or when you have it's solidly set that this is your full potential. Like this is your ideal self of who you want to be. So yes, absolutely, it can change before you're settled into one thing, but I think once you've settled it into one thing and you've put a lot of your time and energy and like just all of your everything into that one ideal, then it's probably set that you're going to go through with it. So after that point, it probably won't change. Very unlikely if it would. Have I considered making a class spec quiz of my own? Kinda not really, because like I said, it depends. It's not dependent upon a current personality. It's dependent on this ideal of who you want to be in the future, and that's really hard to make in terms of a quiz, because it's very dependent on the person in question. And like the problem with the quiz is like people are always going to answer it as if it's like them right now. They're not going to answer it as if like in the sense of like, what do I want to do with my life kind of sense. So it would be nice to make like a sort of like how to find your god tier type guide, but not necessarily a quiz, if that makes sense. Well, yeah, I have thought about it sometimes. It'd be a lot of work though. Next one. I've always thought of the gent as the antithesis to waste, the gent of piss, placed importance and perseverance. Joke classes. I like my matter class better. I just like the quadrant of quadrants, 16 classes. Did I watch the Gravity Falls episode Society of the Blind Eye? The Found seems to be a thief of light converted to a page of wood. No, I have not. The only Gravity Falls episodes I've seen are the ones that include Bill Cipher, so like the one where he controlled Dipper and the weird Mageddon one, and that kind of stuff. Like, I haven't seen anything else, really. Crack theory. Every character is the most important character in Homestuck because the end game is to have every character combined into one. I'm gonna say nope, but good crack theory. Oh, all caps, this is one. I had a terrifying dream about John merging with Rose Sprite to become John Rose Sprite, and all their text was like this. The ditching, I hate Sprite, but it's John. This is very confusing. Same squiddle thing or whatever. Also less terrifying Rose Sprite. That is a terrifying dream. Goodness. Next one. Would a witch avoid go grimdark, or will she control those who have gone grimdark? Again, grimdark is not like this own state. It's just a term that means you are imbalanced in your role, and every single god tier is equally capable of either becoming inverted or becoming over-embraced. I go into this a lot more in my first video that I've saved. I think it's still saved on Twitch because it saves that for like 10 days, but it's somewhere in there. Maybe I'll find a timestamp and just go there, but I've explained this before, and it's no and no. So, interesting that Vriska uses the excuse that it's for Dave's sake that she didn't fetch Dirk sooner instead of saying her time travel retcon led her to believe his arriving sooner would mess with the timeline or something, further getting Dave onto her side in the process of keeping someone who would question her away. It's more that Vriska is just like bullying everyone to doing what she wants. Again, I've mentioned this before in the other video. It's Vriska stealing importance from everybody else, but having this weird way of phrasing it in such a way that she thinks she's doing good by people when she's not. Like, she just honestly thinks like what she's doing is for the good of everyone, and it's really not. It's really, really not. Beautiful update with Dave's awkwardness. I still don't know how to think about Gamzee at this point. I want to say he's horrible, but this Gamzee has experienced a different experience on the meter, so I'm not quite sure how he'll behave at this point. It's possible that he'll be pretty much the same as before, but who knows. Regardless, bringing Vriska back has its benefits and consequences for sure. I would say more so the consequences. Like, the benefits is they get more plot stuff done, but the consequences is, you know, everyone feels like shit, besides Vriska. And there's gotta be a balance with these things. You can't have Vriska over-embracing and everyone else, like, pretty much inverting, almost. Like, not really, but still. You gotta have everyone as a team working together, and everyone can, like, knowing that they have strengths, and everyone knowing that everyone else has strengths. It's gotta be real teamwork, and so far, we haven't seen that yet from everybody, because Vriska keeps messing that up. As for Gamzee, I'm just gonna say, character hate, tagging right now. I don't like Gamzee. I just don't. Maybe, like, it's part because, like, I'm biased. I really liked Nepeta, and that was, like, really hard for me to read the first time I did that, but I just don't like Gamzee. I've yet to find a reason to like Gamzee. Like, even, like, the people who defend Gamzee are like, yeah, he did this horrible things, but it was for this and this and this reason. And, like, cool motive, still murder. Literally. So, I just don't like Gamzee. How do you think a Sylph of Hope would get along with a Prince of Space? I don't know, because class specs don't really, like... It depends on the people involved. You could have extremely different Sylphs of Hope and extremely different Prince of Space, to say nothing of, like, two people in a relationship might want to work past their differences, and two different people might want to not work past their differences. So how a relationship would go between any two class specs is a random question. I have no idea unless you, like, told me more about the characters involved, and even then I wouldn't know because I'm not good at relationship questions anyway. Yeah. If you don't mind, I have a little question of my own. Why did we get all those thorns and tentacles in the moment Rose went grimdark? Because Rose's inverse was void, and the tentacles and thorns and that thing were associated with the horror terrors, which are the symbol of void, in comparison to Skya being the symbol of light. In Rose's case, she had a lot of horror terror-y stuff, because she's a light player inverting to void. Other light players inverting to void would probably also have a lot of horror terror-y type things. Aridin is still a murderer. I don't like Aridin either, to be honest. Like I said, my four horsemen of the apocalypse of the characters I just don't like in Homestuck are Gamzee, Vriska, Aridin, and Caliborn. Like, I don't like them. And that's an entirely personal opinion, like tagging character hate right now. But yeah. Hey, guess who has a new Homestuck-oriented blog? I'm guessing you. Congratulations. Next one. Hello, I love your blog. I think your theories are very thought out and well said. Thank you. I don't know about the well said part, but thanks. I'm having a bit of trouble deciding my class. I am definitely a void player, but I'm debating whether I'm a mage or a knight. Can you shine some light on the differences between the two personality-wise? Okay. So, knight again, they have that sort of very obsessive effort into things. Like, they want to get something right, and they want to get something right, ideally, the first time. And they feel really bad when they get stuff wrong. Like, it really affects their sense of self-worth that they can't function properly, like, immediately. They're very perfectionist. But they sort of hide that between, they hide that behind, like, this shield of, like, self-worth and, like, this facade that they put up for other people. They're like, no, everything's cool, I'm alright, I can handle shit. And meanwhile, they're, like, inwardly sweating, like, oh god, I can't handle this shit, I better make sure I can handle this shit. So it's very, like, that kind of thing. A mage, though, is, like, much more, like, smoothly confident. Like, they can handle things because they've been through that situation before, and they can handle it no problem. They know exactly what they're doing, they got this down pat. Their whole thing's, like, active knowledge, so they're a lot more, like, easygoing, a lot more confident, like, genuinely in the inside. And, like, when their mage turns out to be wrong, it's also, they feel it also as a personal attack, but they feel it more as an offense rather than as, like, something that breaks their foundation. Like, excuse you, I'm wrong? What? Who's the one personally experiencing all of this shit? Like, I know my own experiences and you can't tell me different, kind of thing. So they can be a bit, like, bullheaded a bit with their own knowledge, like that. But it's very different than how a knight takes, like, being told that they're wrong or they did something wrong. So it's very, very different. Next one. Would you mind please explaining thieves and how the different aspects along with it? I did already. You can look that up on my blog underneath any of the aspects. It's tagged aspect, or you can just find it under, like, light aspect or void aspect or any of the ones that you want to see. And thief will be a paragraph inside that post. Next one. Just wondering, do you have any theories on ideas of land titles? Most people agree they're often based on aspects to a degree, but I can never think of anything good to use for them, especially Blood and Hope players. I do. I have an entire guide on my blog on how to find and name your land and what it would mean and what the words of the land are supposed to represent and mean. And yeah, that's under the tag I have called Loxay, which is Loxay, which just stands for Land of X and Y. It's kind of like a base title thingy. And for, like, metaphysical concepts related to Blood and Hope, I have that under the Blood and Hope aspect posts that I have on Tumblr. So you can find those there. If not, if you need more, like, clarity, you can ask me again for that kind of thing, but I think I got it pretty much covered. Man, these are old. Do you know what kind of things could be used for time players' scratch construct time travel device? They seem to be instruments that sort of spin, but it doesn't leave a lot of room outside the turntables and music box and canon. Well, you do have the DVD. It's basically something that spins, or something that repeats, or just something that represents an aspect of time, like a pattern, or like a rhythm kind of thing that has to be scratched or interrupted. Because it's a metaphysical representation of the time in your session. And to scratch, you have to sort of screw that up, like mess with the rhythm, mess with the pattern somehow, or just literally, like, scratch the CD, like just interrupt that repeating pattern. So, like, a music box has a sound that you can, like, or a song you can rewind and unwind, and turntables you can spin the disc. It might be something even more esoteric, like a pattern of light in certain colors that you have to, like, interrupt. Or just, like, something like flashing in a certain pattern that you have to break or smash, or, like, something like that. You just have to interrupt, stop, or break the pattern rhythm of the time thing in your session. And that's very open-ended. It can be a lot of things. It doesn't have to be something that spins, necessarily, just something that has a rhythm to it or a repeating pattern to it that you have to interrupt. A metronome would work, exactly, like a back and forth, like something like that. Yeah, generally they're instruments in general, like it could just be like floating like a tuba making a noise, like you just have to stuff with a plushie or something, even something like that. You don't necessarily have to be time, you don't necessarily have to be music, sorry. That's just one facet of a time aspect. Time also covers, like, patterns and destruction, so it could even be something like a row of bombs always constantly going off in a certain place. And you just have to, like, stop the explosion. Interrupt the time thing. Interrupt the time energy in your session, causing the scratch. It's just generally called a scratch. And, like, makes you wonder just to what extent a construct could be manipulated without actually scratching it. So, like, yeah, so just, like, stopping it, interrupting it, makes it build up the time energy, right? Which would cause, like, the buildup of destructive energy in your session to cause a reset. But if you could do something like, reverse the like time thing and make it go down. Like you could take away time in your session or something like that. But I don't think like any influence you would have on it would be obstructing the thing's energy, which would make the energy build up, which would make the explosion, which would make the scratch. So pretty sure anything you do to it would cause it to like activate in some way. It doesn't have to be, you know what I mean? Like, because even said like only a kid in his quills could scratch the disc, but at the same time Dirk's sword could. So depends. You probably don't want to mess with your time construct that much. That's for sure. Donnie, I'm having trouble figuring out what god tier titles I would have. Do you have any advice, procedures I could go through to help narrow my ideas down and figure out just one that fits the best? This is considered a title assignment question. Hope it's not. Sorry if I'm bothering you. You're not bothering me, it's all. Not at all, it's all good. Yes, I do have a little bit of a guide on how to find your god tier. You have to, first of all, try to think of your ideal self. Like, who do you want to become in life before you die? Like, what do you want to do? Like, what's your goals in life? Like, what's the one main goal that you have? An overarching theme of what you want to accomplish while you're alive. Like, that's going to be very representative of your god tier. And if you're failing to figure that out, I've noticed something too is you can go like from the opposite. Like, you can work from your inversion. Like, something that you definitely don't want to become. Like, what's your absolute worst you could be? Like, what's the worst like state of mind you've ever been in that makes you feel like absolute shit and worthlessness, and what happened around you when that happened? That would be your inversion, and you can sort of like work from an opposite like that. And that's sort of like how I sort of narrowed down my god tier, because like I was floating a bit between Witch of Breath, Witch of Blood, and like Sylph and this kind of thing, like just trying to figure out like what was what. But when I looked to my inverse and what the kind of person I was, I realized the most negative aspects of myself were reflected in a very Sierra Voidy-like mindset. So I was like, that makes sense. And then I looked at the Witch of Light again and thought, you know what, that does sound like a very like cool thing that I would want to be, that would make me very happy in life. So that's one way of going at it. Yeah. The most wonderful trollish idea occurred to me. What if Hussey does something like page 34 of the Paradox Space comic Summer Tween Romance for the battle, cutting elsewhere as the fight's about to begin, or during the middle of the fight, and cutting back to the aftermath to be recapped by the survivors. I don't know, I don't really read the Paradox Space comics. I don't know, just never really interested me all that much, unless like characters that I cared about. And there's like 34 pages of that particular comic, and I just didn't have the time for it because it didn't look important. My throat is starting to hurt a little bit, actually. Okay, let's keep going. Arqueus is already double prototyped, so touching his muscles wouldn't be an issue anyway. Maybe worth noting. The only other examples are John and Kanaya touching their own sprites. Like, maybe this game sets up protections against the living Alpha Timeline players accidentally prototyping themselves before they know what their sprite is. The only self-prototypes did come from already other versions of the player, after all, or the already dead Aradia. I don't know, this is kind of a gray area. It feels almost kind of like a loophole to me, because we did have that, like, update of Tavros sprite eating a button, and, like, no one knows what the fuck effect that was supposed to have on him, but Tavros sprite still got, like, prototyped anyway. So it's just weird. Like, there's things that count as prototypable, and there's things that don't, and we don't know the rule for that yet, so it's just a weird gray area. There's a theory that single prototype sprites can't be touched or touched by the players they hatch for. As for Arqueus, he's always been prototyped twice, so anyone can touch him. Again, though, like, we don't know because of GCat Tavros sprite existing. Like, there's just, we don't know yet, because that didn't happen on purpose. Like, Dave Pita just hugged, like, we don't know the rules of these things yet. It's very accidental, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, because the button is the thing that screws me up the most. Like, what was the point of that? I don't understand. Again, maybe sprites have special conditions. They cannot prototype their own kids or something. But then how would you get Dave's sprite or a Aradia sprite? Like, those are their own kids. Like, I don't know. What would be the title of someone who pretends to be happy to deal with their horrible sense of self-confidence and is encouraged by others to be awesome, and eventually decides the right thing to fight against something that wants to destroy the world because it's the right thing to do, nobody else is doing it, and they fear nobody else will. And their arc is about gaining confidence and loving themselves. And they're an adventure too. It's for my OC. I don't know, probably a knight, maybe, a rogue, something like that. Sounds like Dave, to be honest, to me, so, might as well. Thanks for answering my question. Really cleared things up. Sorry for the beginning of the question seemed like an insult. I swear it wasn't meant to be. No, it's all good. I'm not offended by anything. I don't even remember what this question was about, but it's all good. I've already forgotten, so there you know, I'm not offended. I love your analysis. Characterization is tricky for me. Your class explanations really help me figure out personalities for my OCs. I was just wondering, could you talk more about what inversion looks like in the create and destroy classes? Because the destroy classes tend to act opposite to their aspects. Anyway, not always, so it seems like it would be tricky to tell. For example, what might inversion look like for a Made of Blood? Now, this goes for like the destruction classes seeming to anyway ghost their opposing aspects at first because they destroy their own. That's only one half of what destruction classes do. They also destroy with their aspect. And I know the way I wrote those destruction classes things have a little bit more of a bias towards the destruction of the aspect, so I gotta rewrite those to make it a bit more even, to say that they also destroy with or using their aspect as well. But as for the immersion question, I decided, since I got like a ton of asks about this, I'm just going to put all my thoughts into major posts about inversion. Like, maybe you just make an entire gigantic inversion post that just explains everything and how every class would invert, and like just focus it on the classes though, don't bring the aspects into it, because then it would just get too huge. Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know about Jasper's sprite, like, squared. I don't know about the sprites yet, guys. I have no idea. I'm very upset with what happened with most of them, so it's like, oh, I don't even know. I'm hoping something good comes out of it, because they did have that sort of like artistic callback to like Dave and Durst Rose before they went off to destroy the Green Sun, aka create the Green Sun. It's like there's like that between Dave Peta and Jasper Sprite. Like there's a bit of a, I don't know if anyone noticed that, but it was a bit of an artistic callback to that. So it's kind of implying that Dave, Peta, and Jaspros are going to go off and do something again related to like the plot of the story. I don't know yet, so they might end up doing something. Dave, Peta's the secret open 2K15. Never mind. Don't turn your back on the body, doggy. Okay, I get the feeling that Jade snoozing away while everyone else is gathered on the other side of the frog pad, not looking in direction, might be ominous. I don't think it's so ominous, such as like, because she's not dead, it's not a body. So as much as it is highlighting how much Jade has been shafted in this comic. Like, I don't know if you saw a post that I reblogged a while ago, like how the whole comic seems to be punishing Jade for wanting to have friends. Like, literally, and I think now they're like bringing on more attention to that. How like Jade is just getting shafted in this with regards to friendship, and like especially being mentored by Alt Calliope. Like, ooh, no, girl, no. You'd be better off being mentored by Calliope. Like, but no, I don't think it's like ominous, yes, but not in that Jade's going to do something bad, but more so in the something bad is going to happen to Jade kind of way, which is not. I don't want it to happen. Jade's one of my favorite characters. I'll just keep going. Hello, what do you think the growth arc or challenge would be for a Prince of Blood? The same as any other kind of prince. They would be facing like an overwhelming destructive force of light that they have to like struggle against and try not to be destroyed by, and they would just have to like overcome it and like have more control, like struggle against it and have more control over light as a result of that. And when they've overcome that destructive force and start to wield it as a force of destruction, then they've like grown up and like gotten more control and more of a handle on the situation. It's very similar to bards, because they have that sort of like a crisis of aspect happening, where they also like they're avoidant for the most part of their aspect because they don't see it as a danger, but then it suddenly becomes a danger, and then they're like, oh god, and then they have to like go through that crisis. But once they come out of that crisis, they come out of that with more respect for their aspect and more of a handle and control of their aspect. Whereas for Prince, it's more like just a constant struggle rather than like that kind of thing. I'm a Cancer, but I don't rage as much as Karkat, but I do tend to care for my friends. So what do you think of my Homestuck character? That being a Cancer has nothing to do with Karkat other than being his sign. Like, Hussey didn't really base the characters' personalities off of the Zodiac personalities, despite what it looks like. Like, Cancers are... No. It doesn't mean anything. Like, what, do you think you're like a Knight of Blood or something? I don't know. It doesn't mean anything. I don't know anything about your Homestuck character. It tells me nothing, basically. That one. It's been a long time since I've looked at your blog, and before I took a look again, I thought your planet you're playing Land of Smoke and Mirrors, then after Electric Block says, wait a sec, didn't they sound the same? Just saying. Yeah, my land is like interesting. I like to call it the Land of Fog and Reflection, but it really is the Land of Smoke and Mirrors, like, and all kinds of personal stuff to do with me, but like, yeah, Land of Fog and Reflection is like a fancy way of saying Land of Smoke and Mirrors. Donnie, what type of powers do you think an Heir of Time might have? So passive manipulation time. So they would very easily adapt to any sort of pattern or rhythm or like way of being. Like very easy at getting into the flow of something. Like yeah, because heirs of the passive manipulation is all about like sort of adaptation. So adapting themselves to their situation. So if they notice their environment or their situation has kind of a flow or a pattern or a rhythm to it, they very easily like jump into that really quickly. They agree with that. They might be able to be very good at music or finding rhythm in things or like using anything to make a rhythm or what else? Flashy powers. Manipulation of time. They might sort of like, you know how like a passive reality warper sort of like warps reality and things around them? A passive Heir of Time at their full potential might become sort of like a passive time manipulator where like things fast forward and rewind around them, kind of like how time dilates around a black hole like in space. Like it's just, time might just sort of like dilate around them as a passive effect of time, like a passive rewind or fast forward effect. Like that might be their timey thing, like for instance. And then like, yeah, and they just passively sort of manipulate things with time, which is a very open-ended statement for things. They could just use time to passively change things around them, again with like that sort of passive morality warping but time-based kind of thing. Yeah. You know how Roxy says she made you play in the Nintendos? Well, I just remember that Kingdom Hearts Days was released for Nintendo DS, so the Void player may have been playing the Kingdom Hearts game that starred the Nobodies. Yeah, that's funny. Do you think you could classify Lars and Sadie? I read a post somewhere that made a good point on them being a Prince of Heart and Sylph of Mind, respectively. I did. I disagreed with that. What did I make them? Sadie, I agree with the Sylph part, but I called her a Sylph of Blood, and I have. If you look up like my Steven Universe tag, it's somewhere in there. I'm pretty sure. But Lars always struck me more as like a Bard of Heart. Because he was more so of like avoidant of things rather than like adamantly stubborn about stuff. But yeah, she was Sadie. I can't really see as a mind player, not really. More so a blood player. So what would a Matter of Light do? They would just what was it? What did I call the Matter fan class? Opposite of Waste. Waste was inviting disregard. So Matter is actively regarding. Yeah, they would just actively regard light. They would just watch things that can be seen. They would just watch a lot of TV and stuff. Played Cards Against Humanity with you the other day, yeah. And I thought I'd let you know that I think I found a way to make custom expansions. I've already started on a Homestuck one. You have to use something called Cardcast. Thank you. I saved that because I wanted to remember that. I remember. Next time I play Cards Against Humanity, I'll remember that. Have you seen the latest ep of Gravity Falls? No spoilers. I'm going to specifically ask about your thoughts on Mabel's behavior. Spoilers, I have not seen Gravity Falls, so I had her down to a heart player due to her bombastically unique personality, but her actions in the last few scenes made her seem more like a hope player. Your thoughts? I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of Mabel to be able to make a call on that. I literally only know Bill Cipher. Again. Light is all about symbolism and meaning and the importance you give to things rather than how objectively or inherently important meaningful something is. Agreed. Many light players are able to draw parallels from their adventure with popular tropes and connecting some of their actions to Fridge Brilliance or whatever. They feel like a Witch of Light can also falsify information to get what they want, like raping magic cue balls. Yep, they can entirely do that. And that's part of like the sort of like the moral challenge of witches, because they have the power to actively change anything. The question is, should they? So like, obviously a witch who sort of fails their moral challenge, like with like, what was her name? Demera. Demera is a witch of time, very over-embracing. So an over-embracing witch is someone very bad. they're more likely to just like change things in their favor and like falsify stuff and like just be uncaring about what something should be or what other people want things to be. So you're back. Family required family time. Yeah. And now you have the image of Lars wearing a pink codpiece. But yeah, Witch of Light, who's over-embracing or like just generally like a bad Witch of Light, definitely can falsify information. Witch of Mind. Fun fact, I class spec'd Naminé from Kingdom Hearts as a Witch of Mind, so yeah. I have that. If you're just looking for a basic personality though, I already have that, so if you search like Witch of Mind on my blog, you should find it and all that kinds of things. Bad news, my laptop died, taking all my OC's computer. I just wanted, okay, yeah, not anything. Looking at God tier outfits themselves, was running about the shoe colors. Yep, at first I thought it was the shoes of the opposite aspect, but while some of them don't work like that, mind and heart as well as time and space have switched shoe colors, but none of the other pairs follow that pattern. Do you think this actually has any meaning at all, or is it just random? I think it's just random. Me and lots of other people have tried thinking about the shoe colors before, and it's not based on like the classes or aspect themselves. It's based on the characters themselves, and plus the fact that we know that you can actively change your god tier outfits. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just shoe colors. It doesn't really mean anything. I don't know. It's probably just a factor that's only like personally relevant. Like it only matters to the character in question. So it's probably different depending on different people. Who knows? Do you think Chakravartin could be a denizen? If so, which aspect? I don't know what Chakravartin is, so I can't give you an answer, unfortunately. Another inversion question. Again, I get a lot of these, so I'm just going to make a big post about that later. So it's generally accepted that thieves are the bullies of the classes, tending to trample others underfoot to get what they want, but what class could be the bully to the thief? They're not really the bullies of the classes. That's an over-embracing thief is a bully, for sure, definitely, but any over-embracing character can be a bully. Because over-embracing just means, like, you have so much confidence in yourself that you think other people are worthless and you trample over them. It's just over-embracers are bullies of other people, and not just thieves. It just happens that both thief players that we have so far have both had elements of over-embracing to them, elements of selfishness to them. But Mina has actually been showing a lot of like self-reflection and Void Vriska, like the punk Vriska, like she's actually also shown like a lot of like growth in that area too, so it's not necessarily thieves. It's just over-embracers. Like Caliborn is over-embracing Lord of Time. He's way a bully. Personal opinion on Lord and Muse classes. Mine is that the Lord defines aspect or defines my aspect. Hey, same as me. It would make sense for a Lord to define their aspect because that's what rulers do. Their will is final in their doing. As well, they write the rules and laws of their societies. Well, that makes sense, I agree. Well, the Muse invites definition of aspect, or invites definition through aspect. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm the one who came up with that, which would make sense considering a Muse is supposed to be an inspiration for others around them, maybe they inspire their aspect and people to find their own ideas. Yeah, pretty much, I'm pretty sure I'm the one that came up with that, so... Unless someone else did and I was just unaware of that, in which case I'm sorry for accidentally stealing your idea. But yeah, I agree, totally. Is that a good method for if you are sure on a character's aspect but are stuck on their class too, figuring out what their inverse behaviors are closest to, I mean? Because I'm debating between Knight of Light and Rogue of Light for someone, and I'm not really sure how to pick which fits best. Yeah, if you're unsure, remember, you have to think about that your god tier is what you want to become. It's always this ideal, what you want to become, what you want to do in life, like what's your major defining goal that people are going to remember you for eons after you're dead, like. And so the opposite of that would be your worst. It would be what you don't want to become, like, what's the most awful thing, like, you could have done personally, like, that kind of, like, your absolute worst. So an inverse is, like, it would be the opposite of your actual class. So if you're not sure of your actual class, you can work backwards from that. If you don't know your best, but you know for sure your worst, you can definitely work backwards from that and just, like, flip it into, like, the opposite of your worst is your best kind of thing. A question about my role as a Bard of Void. You describe the Bard's challenge as not letting their aspect control them, and that seems weird to me, as their aspect description by Caleb is to allow destruction as if by the will of the aspect. I guess my question is, if you see the request of the Bard as don't be a Bard, if yes, what good can this class bring to the party? If no, what can the Bard do as a Bard? I'd love to hear about the Bard of Void specifically. Thanks in advance. So it's not like passive destruction. Like all passive classes, their powers are going to seem as if by will of the aspect, because it's the difference between asking and telling. An active class can directly tell their aspect to do a thing, and it will do it. Whereas a passive class has to work with their aspect more. They have to like work with it, get their permission, do things that an aspect would do naturally. And that doesn't like cancel out that the bards is passive destruction specifically. So a bard's like a destruction class, their specific challenge to them is not getting controlled by the whims of their aspect, not like being overpowered by their aspect specifically and causing it to destroy themselves. Because bards go through this like sort of crisis of aspect. Like Gamzee was very chill, and then suddenly he snapped and went into like this crisis of rage because he was forced to confront something that made him feel very ragey. Dave's little ICP blasphemous stuff, right? Cronus had this as well. Little bits we see it. He used to be someone who like it's implied his crisis of hope was when he did his little Harry Potter spiel, and he was like, "Wands, magic, yes, yay!" And like the Cronus that we see is sort of like the aftermath of that. He went through his crisis, but he didn't come out like with a respect of it and wanting to do that. He just like sort of got controlled by the whims and like just went with it, and then didn't get anything out of it. So he sort of like failed as a bard. Whereas with Gamzee, I'm not really sure if he's like in control of himself right now. So I don't know what's up with him. But I don't see any like mutual exclusivity by saying a passive class has to work with their aspect more, and by saying passive destruction has to like not let their aspect control them. Because like working with an aspect, like there's an implied equal power balance, but with a bard specifically the challenge, because it's destruction, especially a destructive aspect, they have to learn how to control. They have to learn to not be destroyed by that aspect, to not let their own self be overwritten by what the aspect is. They have to have balance, have a mutual respect between the two. Same as with a prince, but on a more active scale. Yeah. So I don't see the quest of the bard as don't be a bard. No, because what a bard does after they go through their crisis is they come out with a more nuanced control and like destructive power with their aspect. Like the thing that bards should be able to do is destroy things, but passively, so in like a gentler way. Like whereas a prince could just like uproot a tree by its roots and like just lift it up, chuck it somewhere, and like gone, it's destroyed. The destruction a bard does is less slashing and tearing and more like a kind of infection, a slow poison, like a corruption or a decay or a rusting kind of destruction. Like that's sort of from the inside out. Like destruction in a way that the object would naturally be destroyed in over time. Like people die, or like things rot away or rust or that kind of thing. Something that would happen to it naturally as its own natural destructive force, like the passive aspect, like through the passive aspect. So a bard should be able to destroy with a bit more finesse and a bit more of like a gentle touch. And like if there's an overabundance of their aspects somewhere, a bard would be able to ease the transition back into balance. Whereas like if you throw a prince into a certain situation that requires finesse, they might like it might be too harsh. Like the shock of the change might be too much, and that might aggravate the balance rather than bring it back into balance. Whereas a bard would bring more of a potential like lowering and like gentle like lessening versus like an outright forceful ripping and tearing apart that a prince would. I know you don't do God tier assignments, but I have a question about the God tier test from andrew.cmu.edu RL Labs. Is it good to use to determine a God tier? I feel it's kind of vague, and I don't know if I should trust it full-heartedly. I don't really trust any kind of class spec tier or class spec thing test like at all, to be honest, because it's not really accurate with how I view God tiering in class specs. Again, personality tests, it's all about, it will only tell you the kind of person you are currently, and that's useless to what kind of God tier you want to be. Like, because a God tier is, again, it's your ideal. It's what you want to become in the future, or what you want to do with your life before you die, at the very least. Like, it's like a final goal and like that kind of thing. Wow, I think I'm really losing my voice. It's starting to hurt my throat a lot. I've been talking for like almost 5 hours. Oh, I think I might just continue this till 8 o'clock and then just stop at like 8 o'clock because I'm really starting to hurt. Jesus, I might just continue it tomorrow even. But I think I got at least like a quarter of the way through my inbox thing. So I'll do a few more. I'll do it till 8 o'clock and then give myself a rest. I'm trying to figure out what class pack fits with a character. I know you don't do assignments. I know. But it's more asking for a general direction because I'm really stumped on Doom, Breath, Blood, Rage for this person with possibilities of Prince, which error. Yeah. Like I said, don't think about what they are right now. Think about what they want to be. Like, character growth, not character reality, currentness. Yeah. What if Calliope is named after the carnival instrument, not the muse? Since Caliborn is just a variant of Excalibur, couldn't the cherubs represent the weapon musical instrument themes that seemed so important back in the early days of Homestuck? Frame out of store features both together, sword across to the musical note. Yeah. Yep. I suppose that's fitting for cooperative text, yet just as Calliope dies, the music seems to have been largely forgotten by the characters. Just a thought to think. That's actually very cool and very symbolic. Like, how originally the 4 characters all had their sort of like musical instrument, but nowadays you wouldn't even think Jade would touch a guitar, or like Rose is like, yeah, you know, violins, whatever. John in his piano. Dave in his mixes though seems to be pretty consistent. But that's true that Caliburn is a variant of Excalibur, and Calliope is the name of a carnival instrument. But Calliope is also literally the muse though, so it's like symbolism doesn't compete with each other for other symbolism. Like, this is something I've noticed a lot with some people. Like, they think something can only mean one thing, but like symbolism doesn't compete with each other. Like, everything symbolically can exist simultaneously. She can be the musical instrument, which is very fitting symbolically, and she can be the muse, which is also very fitting symbolically. It just from different symbolic ends. Like, again, why can't it be motherfucking both things? Like, to use the quote from Gansey. But it's very true. Like, someone's talking about princes and bards. See the difference between Prince and Bard and Gamzee and Eridan. Gamzee's just like, yeah, miracles, believe in yourself, destroying rage and fear in a very subtle way. But Eridan was like, oh my god, the thing you believe in is so fake. More violent on destroying people's hopes with his own hope. Hey, Hen, you're sounding a bit tired. Why not call it a night? You've been talking for, 6 hours? You can finish there. I've only been talking for, 45 hours, because I took an hour break at 6 from 7. But yeah, my voice is starting to, choke a bit, so I'm going to stop at 8 o'clock, though. I'll keep going till 8. That'll be fine. And I'll do it again tomorrow. Do a couple more. Ooh, go. I want you. So I was looking at your Denizens post and noticed you had Janice as Doom. It makes sense in some ways, but I feel like Janice should be mine. Again, you don't have to use my word for it. It's not like we'll ever have, a canon confirmation of other Denizens in Homestuck, unless he decides to use other Denizens. I happen to see Janice as Doom, personally, because, sort of the differing views you can have in something, which can be a mind thing, and also the whole two-faced, Doom is very black and white, opposites, two different things, figure eights, oh my goodness. But yeah. I just happen to see Janice as Doom, personally. Connie from Steven Universe is a Witch of Light. I actually cast collected her as a Rogue of Light. And if you look under the Connie Maheshwaran tag, you should find that. Because it's very, very cool. And it was actually very supported in her inverted role as a Knight of Void in the episode where she was sword training from Pearl. And I was like, oh, wow, that fits way better than I initially thought. So I was very happy for that episode. I just wanted to say thanks for all the God tier explanations on here. I'm making a fan venture and they're extremely helpful. Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to have helped. Silent Hill is a huge embodiment of hope and rage, scaring people with demons that shouldn't exist and are called angels by fanatics, strengthening black magic that fuels and helps the fanatic cultist, dealing with repressed memories and making people trick themselves into believing are fake. It breaks doors, narrowing your possibilities, gives few weapons, makes you feel powerless and ineffective. Oh, that's very cool. I didn't know that about the Silent Hill series. Yeah, I can agree with that. Sounds pretty cool. Well, from what you've told me, of course, I don't really know much about Silent Hill, other than it's a horror game. It's really popular. Expand on the page of Doom, please. Are we talking Pyro from Team Fortress or something more, say, Fujiwara no Moku. I don't know what that is. I know kind of what the pyro from Two Porches is, but I have no idea what this is, so I know how to answer your question. Page of Doom is just sort of like passively applying like the fated ends, the rules, limits, laws, limitations, that kind of thing to a situation, or even their own laws and limits and rules to a situation. So like, sort of in how do I phrase this? So the function, they would passively apply the function of very doomy things into the situation. That's what pages kind of do. They apply the function of their aspects to situations, or things that do like very aspecty functions. Like, because it's very difficult to talk about the page and the knight without specific examples, because the power of application changes in its nature depending on the thing you're interacting with. Like I said before, like books are read, cars are driven, so finding a way to sort of generally talk about them is difficult, because when you try to talk about it, it sounds very vague, and it's like, well, what's an example of that? And it's like, well, here's a specific example, and it's like, so all pages can drive cars, and it's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. That's just an example of a. It's really difficult to talk about. I'll have to make something specific about pages and knights pretty soon, I think, because lots of people have questions about that. Next one. I wanted to ask about the God Tier Knight of Rage and the analysis you wrote. I wanted to see if you thought of some of the title's tendencies could be present in some different ways. Like, I wanted to know if the shield they use to hide behind could be them usually acting really emotionless or calm, and then if their paranoia and anger could manifest itself in anxiety issues and an extremely short temper. Also, could them being highly reactive only show when they're feeling angry or anxious? Thanks. Kind of. The whole point of the Knight's shield is it's a shield of competence, but it's specifically a shield of competence that has to do with their class spec. So if Knight of Rage wants to look like someone who's got a handle on this whole Knight of Rage thing. So they've got a handle on the rage aspect. They've got a handle on the whole being a knight and the application or the function of things. So the shield should sort of like reflect that. So their shield would be someone who knows how to use rage in a constructive way. So like a constructive criticism, or like healthy barriers and limits for things, personal things, a good sense of like fear and anger over things that they're scary or they don't understand, but like that makes them seem rational and sensible and like a generally upstanding kind of person. So I don't think it would necessarily then be emotionless or calm, but like emotional in a seemingly constructive way. Sounds better. How do you think a Mage of Rage would do in a fight? Like, what type of techniques or stuff would they use? They'd probably be one of those that knows your every single fear. That knows exactly, like, what you won't do, what your limits are. Like, I think they would know how to, like, use that against you, definitely. Because they're someone who's, like, personally experienced a lot of fears and how fear affects someone. Like, Scarecrow from Batman. Oh, exactly. That was just like a clothesline moment for me. Scarecrow from Batman. I think he's a Batman villain anyway. He's a character that's like all to do, but like he's a scientist, psychologist guy of like what makes you afraid and like what fear is good for, and like he's really a good proponent of like fear as like necessary and everyone should be afraid in their life sometime. Like super over embracing Mage of Rage. That would be Scarecrow. So anything like Scarecrow could do, Mage of Rage could do, definitely. That's a good one. I should write that down. What would happen if a Prince of Space and a Prince of Time were to fight? I don't know. Lots of things. This is why I don't really like to answer like how would X and X character fight, how would X and X character fall in love, how would X and X character be friends, like because they always give it to me in class specs, and like for one I don't really know how to answer those kind of questions anyway because there's so many variables, but like you give it to me in class specs and I don't know who you're talking about, so it's like it's too vague. Like there could be too many different kinds of Prince of Space and Prince of Time, so I don't know, it's too vague. I wouldn't be able to answer something like that. Yes, I would be comfortable with such terms, most likely. I don't know what that's referencing, so I don't know. Remember when Jade Sprite was remembering things like John dying and Jade wasn't sure what she was talking about besides she saved John, and how she continued to remember stuff from Jade Sprite's memories on the Golden Ship? That kind of sounded like the retcon timeline, being alone for a long time and meeting Trollsonas. And we're seeing these updates through a sky cloud, so maybe it'll reveal that Dream Jade is the one watching the cloud. Kelly has something to do with Jade Sprite's memories? Possibility. I don't know. Maybe. To think about that more. But yeah, seems possible. Why not? Considering Rose Sprite says that Casey has been plotting, biding his time, accruing Dark Legions, and since I'm pretty sure they still landed on Jake's planet, she could have John's ashes, which could lead them pouring him. Oh, that's my theory that I wanted to happen. It didn't happen. Curses, John Sprite. I really wanted that to happen, and it didn't, so I was like, oh well. I was happy for the few seconds that Nepeta Sprite was around. Okay, so far on my friends and my team, is there a specific class that would be best suited for helping the Lord of Rage not turn against the team while in the session, or would that be more determined by the personalities of the players? You just answered your own question. That is entirely dependent on the personalities of the players, and there's nothing saying a Lord of Rage would turn against the session. Lord is not a bad player, nor is a Rage aspect always bad. It depends on the person in it. Like, class specs are a set of tools. That's it. They're a set of things that you can do, or ways of doing things, or a way of being, and anyone can go into that and use it for different things. So it just depends on the person in question. Is it possible a Mage of Time can easily lose track of time? Like, what do you mean it's midnight? It was only 3 p.m. 2 minutes ago, sort of thing. Or maybe they really like singing but have a terrible singing voice. Again, this is focusing on the mages always suffer from their aspect thing, so maybe yes, but no, not really, because they have more experience and knowledge on how time is good and useful. So it's not they suffer from their aspect, it's that they have personal experience with their aspect and personal knowledge about their aspect. Again, another one of those confused on their title things. I think I've repeated myself enough in this kind of thing. So, John said Dave Sprite did some poignant things to say at the funeral they held for Bro on the Golden Ship ride, so indicate what that suggests about whether a Strider reunion 3 times combo is more likely, or maybe. I feel like he'd be revealed doing something plot relevant stuff. Do you mean like Bro Strider, like seeing him again? Like, oh, thank you. I don't want that. Yeah, speaking of characters we don't need to see, or we need to see. No, we don't. We pretty much have to show Solix again eventually because of You're Not Dead, Merely Doomed line of Radius I do him since that's the thing. Yeah, I think we're going to see Solix in the Radia again. I don't know about Bro Strider, because no. Hell no. I don't know about anyone else, but I have intense personal feelings about the Strider reunion that happened. Holy crap, I couldn't even blog about it because it's just I was really unprepared for that update, so it just brought up a lot of personal feelings of myself and me, with Dave's situation with Bro that's been revealed, and it was oh, I don't need to see Bro again. I would be so happy if we never saw Bro ever again. Oh, here's a fun one. What would I prototype my sprite with? That's a good question. I think I would follow that sort of unintentional rule of it being prototyped with a dead thing, but I don't know what that dead thing would be, unless it was a fish that I didn't take care of, because that's, I could say I had a pet hamster or something and it died, but I would feel bad about that. The larger an animal is, or the more cute and cuddly it is, the more I would feel bad about it dying. So I think this, if there was a dead insect, but that would be terrifying as a sprite. So a fish, right? And then I could prototype it with something else, and it would be a strange mermaid sprite. And that, I don't know, that would be something it would represent something voidy about me, or I don't know. Probably a fish. I don't know much more other than that, and it would turn something else into a mermaid. Since you like Kingdom Hearts, what would you say the Kingdom Hearts characters' class specs are? A friend and I did a Kingdom Hearts AU way back. Don't remember all the god tiers we did, but I remember Naminé was a Witch of Mind, Karius of Blood, Terra Knight of Hope, blah blah blah. I do. I have an entire list of Kingdom Hearts class specs, and as well as a bit of a discussion actually, because someone wanted to debate with that about me, and that was kind of cool. But yeah, if you search Kingdom Hearts on my blog, you should find that. I have a lot of thoughts about that because I do enjoy the series very much. Well, this is split into two. When I try to maintain happiness to others, it seems to backfire. I'm like a genie who grants your wish, but you didn't get what you expected, and non-purposely give people the lesson not to expect. this is the thing too, like half the time when people send me little descriptions of themselves, it's intentionally worded that sounds like a certain stereotype of a class spect. So it feels like them just wanting to say things to me in order to confirm what they wanted originally in the first place. But so it's completely useless to me. It's not even like actually class specting someone. You know what I mean? So anyway, it's 8 o'clock now. So now that I've confirmed that like all my stuff gets saved like as videos on my computer, then I feel good about deleting all these asks now. So yeah, I'm gonna stop now. And my voice is really starting to hurt actually. That's what I get for like talking for hours and hours and hours and end without stopping. I should drink some water too. I'm probably dehydrated. Jesus. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna stop now. Boop.